Welcome to the Business of You podcast, the show dedicated to helping service entrepreneurs build a better brand to grow a bigger business. I'm your host, Michelle Griffin, and I'm here each week empowering you to put yourself out there, sharing actionable tips and inspiring stories so you can create your personal brand, grow your dream business, and build your future, all while making more income and more impact doing exactly what you love. I'm super excited you're here. Now let's get going with today's show. Welcome everybody to today's show. I'm your host, Michelle Griffin, and I'm super excited to introduce you to my guest here. She's got a really unique perspective on personal brands. Tracy Borreson, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Michelle. I'm so excited to be here.
And coming to us all the way from where are you exactly in Canada?
Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
Yay. Well, yes. So I have lots of international people and friends on my show. We're super excited to welcome our first Canadian friend to the show. Today, we're going to talk all about what is very important to you and to me. It's all about permission to do you in your personal brand building and thought leadership. Love the idea. This is Tracy's thing she coined, and she's going to tell us a little about it. First, I guess I'm jumping the gun. Tell us exactly what are you doing in this space, Tracy, and who do you serve?
Yeah, I am all about people sharing their unique voices with the world. And I have a very unique combination of marketing experience. I have background in marketing, specifically in automated voice technology, which has really embedded in me the different type of relationship people can have with you when you are using an authentic voice. The phrase permission to do you actually came from a mastermind group that I run. And one of the sessions, one of the participants said to me, like, "Oh, I just needed your permission to do that." And I was like, did you? Not really. But the concept being that there are so many things in life that we're waiting for permission to do. And if people want my permission to do them, then I will give it. I will give you the permission to be yourself, use your voice, use your words. One of the things that Michelle and I have chatted about a whole bunch is kind of marketing messaging and how that plays out in that arena. And I've seen, again, so often people get distracted by using other people's scripts and things like that. And even though both of us are fans of StoryBrand, I've seen that be a distraction, even StoryBrand scripts. And so it's just as amazing to me to be able to create a space where people can find their own voice and find the confidence to use their words and their genius to share what they want with the world. This is where all the greatness comes from, in my opinion. This is what I do, and I help people who feel like they want to have that.
Well, that's exactly aligned with this audience, our listeners, and what I believe in myself. Technically, you call yourself a brand identity coach, just to frame that. Is that correct?
I do, yes.
Okay. Brand identity coach, working with entrepreneurs in different areas, in different spaces predominantly.
Yeah, I've worked with authors. I have worked with a lot of coaches. I have worked with people who even just are trying to have a voice. I'm working with social justice and things like that. That was actually really fascinating to me because I'm a big proponent of it. I'm about amplifying voices. And if I can, wherever I can, amplify other people's voices, then that is what I try to do.
Well, that's exactly what I do. I try to amplify people and their visibility and to step out so they can stand out and be recognized, make an impact, whatever that impact means in so many ways. I love permission to do you. One of the things I say a lot of times in some LinkedIn posts is you don't need permission and you don't need perfection, because that's another point where people are held back. You know, I got to make this perfect. And you're talking to someone who waited 5 years before I stepped out. And I think I was maybe waiting for someone to give me permission. And then I realized it is never coming. You take it and you do it and you make it. And so I love that you're empowering that with people, because that's my whole premise for this podcast and what I do. There are so many brilliant people out there who have so much to give. They just need that message, that voice, and the permission. But the permission is granted by you helping them find that loophole, that identity that they see their space. Is that how it works?
Yeah. And just one thing I want to throw out there, because my favorite thing to say is to ask for forgiveness, not for permission.
Yes. Love
so
it.
It's funny that the permission has become my tagline, because I don't believe in asking for permission most times, which is funny because I was a very rule abiding child and now not so
Now
much.
you're breaking them. Now you're breaking the rules in a good way, though.
I spent all that time following rules, and
yes.
that was my time commitment to that, and now I'm over it.
Well, especially in the online world, having a presence and building your brand and thought leadership, you do not need permission. You just got to get out there. That's the number one thing. You're giving them the tools and empowerment. So, you've told us a little bit of why permission to do you is so important. What exactly is the reason why? I mean, I know you've told me, but is there another deeper, more business focused level if you're not doing permission? What could the problem be?
So when you give yourself your permission to do it your way, the coolest thing about that is it is by default different than everybody else's way. And so as business owners, we're often looking to stand out from the crowd, right? Like we're not looking to hide behind all the trees if you're really trying to find business and help the people who need your help. Like you're trying to stand out. Well, you naturally do that. Yes. Because no one else is like you. And so we have all this history that has convinced us that there's something else we should be. And if we be that, then that will be better for us. Those words just are so meaningless, really. Better than what? But this is an external rhetoric that we have told ourselves from the time we're very small. And quite honestly, it's a little bit worse for women. We have additional levels of gender rhetoric that is expected of us. And the more you're told it, the more you start to believe it. There's just not enough people giving us permission to do ourselves, right? What if? Let's amplify the voices that are talking about, and this is why I'm so happy to be on this podcast, because I believe this is exactly what you're doing, Michelle. Amplify these voices that are all saying, hey, here's the benefit of just being yourself.
Absolutely.
Forgotten what that looks like. But guess what? It's still inside us.
Oh, it's there. It's there, but it's buried or it's hidden because of doubt, imposter syndrome, comparative syndrome, all of the things and all the syndromes. And it is so refreshing to just come out and be you and know that you can. And you don't have to pretend, you don't have to compare, you don't have to take notes, you just be you. But you need a lane. And I think that's what you're giving people. You're given the context and the lane. How do I do it? Because it's easy to say permission to you, but in your work and practice with your clients, how does that look like? What is your process?
The biggest thing that I concentrate on are personal brand values. And again, I feel like this is an exercise that so many people have done, but the exercise hasn't become a livable thing. So when you go through this and you look at, my work with my clients is focused around what are you all about? And so I don't like the classic I help statements or even the real basic high level concept of niching down. I believe in figuring out what you're all about and then building everything else off that. So in essence, exactly what you said, Michelle, it's building your lane. It's helping you to see these are my lines, and I'm creating them though. It's not someone else who's put me in a box or a lane. I'm deciding that this is me and this is what I'm going to talk about and this is how I'm going to talk about it. And these are the channels I'm going to use to talk about it. And these are the channels I'm not going to use to talk about it. And picking the things, because again, one of the things in my marketing experience I saw so often was people just using a strategy or a tactic because it's a good idea. But it doesn't align with their business. And so it always feels, if not inauthentic, then removed, right? It's just a task that you're doing. And you can't have a real authentic relationship through that process if that feels so inauthentic for you. And so those strategies that you choose for sales, marketing, business growth, all of the personal work-life blend, right? All of these things are based off of your personal values, and creating ways for you to show up in alignment with your personal values as close to 100% as possible, because there's no such thing as perfect. You will not show up in alignment 100% of your time. Michelle and I are both pretty good at personal branding, and we don't show up in alignment 100%.
No. Yeah, because those inner voices always find a way to come out.
And you can practice changing your thoughts and changing your feelings. But man, I don't know. I experienced this last week, right? Like I wanted to go see my parents for my birthday. COVID said no. So what can I do? There's nothing I can do. And guess what? I was sad about it.
Yeah.
That's fine. It's okay to be sad.
Yeah.
That actually shows you that something that was important to you didn't happen. And it's
Yeah.
okay. It's okay. Those emotions, anytime you have strong emotions, those are indicators of your personal brand and whether or not it's in alignment. And so use that. Take that as a pride moment. You know what? Like, I got disappointed because my personal values were not met today. That's okay.
I love that. So you give permission to give yourself grace, as you say, and be livable. And I know one thing, and I think it speaks on your website, and you and I have discussed this. There's so many templates and shiny objects too, but there's so many templates. Like, take this template and this is going to be the answer to all your problems. And no, that's not the case, because it has to be, I don't even like to use the word authentic that much because it is a little bit trendy and misused, but it's the real you. And so we all, in my book, we all have a personal brand, either by design or default. So it's just a matter of aligning who you are based on what you're good at, what your skill set is, and who you want to help. And so what I think you're telling me is a lot what I do with my clients. We get dialed in to who you are, what's realistic and attainable for you. Because do you also find that clients want all this, and then do you bring them back into reality after you've like said, well, this doesn't really seem, even though I know at the end of the day it's their choice, right?
Yeah. And there's just so many stories again, right? You need this, you must have this, you must do this. And like, so just know you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. You do have to do something. You have to do something to share your story, especially if you're a business owner. You're not going to get any sales unless you tell somebody you do a thing. This is as simple as it gets, but it can be as simple as you having coffee chats with people and telling people what it is that you do, getting excited, going on podcasts, right? Like, choose what you like. You don't have to have your own podcast. I don't have my own podcast. Like, I have a YouTube show, and lots of people don't have YouTube shows. You do what you like, what's fun for you to do, because guess what? When it's fun for you to do it, you show up in your best energy. And then you get to attract people into your best energy.
Totally.
That's the best type of people to attract.
Well, here's an example here. You like the YouTube videos. I absolutely love talking to people. So people say, gosh, a podcast is work. I mean, yesterday I taped 5 episodes. I batched them, and someone was like, I can't believe you did that many. And I said, yeah, it's a lot, but I love talking to people. It's easy for me. I love it. And I love tech. So it's a perfect thing. Whereas this may not be perfect for you. And I also like LinkedIn Live. So someone may want to be a writer. So write. What's good for me is not good for you. So those are all perfect examples. And I think it gives people just a calming effect. Like, oh, I can still be successful, stripping away all the things that don't matter to me and to my audience. So I already have a breath of fresh air just hearing that. Now, strategy here, great tips on a tactical level. What are some of the steps? Because I think I said Wednesday, I don't want to spill your trade secrets. And you were so sweet. You're like, I don't have trade secrets or competitors or something like that. But first steps, like if someone wants to kind of do permissioning, do you, and if they work with you or not, where would you guide them to start?
My favorite place is to start with your emotions. To notice your emotions. And I love to start here because you don't actually need a coach for this, right?
Okay.
There's actually a lot of things that it's a lot easier to do with a coach, but this is something that you can do without a coach. And yes, I don't believe in trade secrets. If you ask me a question, I tell you the answer. And so when you feel those things, like I was talking about earlier in this episode about feeling sadness, right? I was feeling sadness because my number one value is family. And I couldn't see my family for my birthday for the second year in a row, which is just, it's very hard for me. Where I live, we've been on lockdown since December 14th. So I didn't get to see them for Christmas. I didn't get to see them for Easter. I haven't got to see them for my son's birthday or my birthday. It's starting to get to the point where you're like, yeah, I'm sad. I am now sad about this. One birthday, maybe, meh, but like, I am missing something. And that's because that's something that's important to me. If it wasn't important to me, it wouldn't make me sad. So this is something that I experience in the personal branding arena actually quite often, is I'll see people making a comment and I'm just like, that's not what personal branding is. And then I'll get really mad and talk about it on LinkedIn because that's what I do. But that is saying something to me. That emotion is saying that what that person said or did is not aligned with what I would do or say or what I believe. Those are windows into your personal brand. And so if you haven't done any discovery before, like Michelle said, you have a personal brand, whether by design or by default, you have one.
Yes.
We're not all walking around as empty shells.
Yeah, no, we do. We just,
Yeah.
some of us don't want to do it. And that's fine. There's a lot of misconception and and that's one of the reasons for this show too, a premise to bring subject matter experts like yourself on and address the aspects of it to help grow it, to help define it, and to help bring the good light of it. I don't look at this as a vanity metric, narcissistic thing. This is you, like you do, being permission to be you to help others, essentially at the end of the day. And then the way to do that is to get your voice out, to get known, to show up as the real you in service, and the sales will come. I'm all about connection and relationship building. It's a core value of mine, actually. Like yours is family, of course, family too. I have personal and professional core values.
Everybody has different values. I get this all the time because my number one overarching kind of historically painful for me is family. Does not mean that that's the best value to have or that you should have that value. People have different experiences. This is not the point. The point is, I gave you the example, right? I'm sad because that's a value of mine. And if you haven't dug deep and defined what those values are, those are the windows. And so that's your first opportunity. My very good friend, Tara Argo, she just recently, through an experience of hers, was like, oh, integrity. There's just no integrity. I'm like, I know, that's because you care about integrity. And she's like, oh, yeah, I do.
She didn't even realize it. But when you say something enough, write about it, complain to people about it, or praise it or whatever. So you really just have to kind of just silence all the noise, get off social media, and just do an introspection. Our body gives us clues. If you pay attention, you can see your stomach knotting up or the little subtle things. So that's your first step, is just, pay attention, get the emotions in check, realize them, because we have them there, but we also don't realize them.
Right.
So that's super important. Once you do that, walk us through a couple more steps. And then we won't take the whole process because we can be here a long time. But what are some of the other common things or best practices?
Yeah. So one of the biggest ones that I like to focus on too, especially for people who have their own business, is using that information to harness their zone of genius and helping them differentiate between a zone of expertise, which is a skill that you've practiced, so you're good at. I have a zone of expertise in making scones. That's great. This is not my job. Like, that's fine. But I'm not going to be a professional baker just because I'm good at scones, right? I'm here to do something else. And so a zone of genius is tied into your personal values. So where are these places where you can bring those two together? I always like to talk about it as a puzzle, right? So every single person who hasn't been on a personal branding journey is an unopened puzzle. You open the box and some of the pieces are upside down and some of them are right side up and some of them are twisted into each other weird and not in the right spot. It's jumbled. And all of those pieces are a part of your personal brand and they make the full picture. And so the most important thing is to understand that you are the full picture, and the transitioning that into the voice is not censoring any part of that picture on purpose. That doesn't mean you have to say all the things all the time. Like I randomly threw in the scones thing. But there's lots of other things about me that I haven't talked about today. Not because I'm specifically not telling them though. So that's the difference, because quite often people are like, "Ooh, I can't talk about that," or like, "That's not very professional. I shouldn't be like that." And the exercise that I walk my clients through is flipping over all those puzzle pieces and putting them together to see the beauty that they make, because without every single piece, it's not complete.
Exactly. I love that. So do you help them frame all those 1,000-piece puzzles as them, or do you think there's always a place to keep adding more?
Personal brand, for good and for bad, is constantly evolving. So as you change and learn and grow, there's more dimensions of you. There's values that you have that may fade into less important values. Like, quite honestly, my family value was heightened substantially when I had my son. And these things will change in your life. And that's normal. This is what it looks like to be a human. So to take that away actually takes us farther away from a human experience. And it takes us farther away from being able to connect with other people, because other people are having a human experience.
Exactly.
And we forget that.
That's so true. And I love what you said about zone of expertise versus zone of genius. I had never put those two together like that. It's really smart, because I think we think, oh, I'm so good at X, so I should make a business out of it. And it's not always the case. It's not always reality or in line with you and where you are. So you must do a really deep dive when you're one-on-one and group coaching with your clients. It sounds like they walk out just almost crystal clear. I mean, if you can say that, as close as you can get. Is that what you attain to do with your clients?
Yes. Crystal clarity, but also with the permission, you're going to learn something else that you didn't know. Like we have 8 coaching sessions. It's not, you're going to learn more things. But the other important thing, so clarity, confidence, but then the permission to say like, oh, I didn't realize that. But now you have the skills to help you process that. How does that fit in? How do I want to include it in my narrative? Do I want to include it in my narrative? Is it just like the references I make when I speak? It can be that. There's no one way it's supposed to look. One of my favorite things to say to my clients is that if we were all supposed to sound the same,
we would. Yeah. And thank goodness we don't. That would be such a boring world.
So boring.
Well, I am so refreshed just hearing that. It's comforting to know all these things that you work, the deep dive. You really get maybe even deeper. I work on some of these things, but you even maybe take it a step further, a step deeper, because there are those people that just need that help. There's some people who come to me and they get it, but there are some people that sounds like they really need to go to you maybe before, because you're really giving them that first foundational. It's like building a house, the foundational work, but you're even doing the under the foundation work.
I'm making sure there's no like weird tree roots that are going to penetrate that foundation.
That is such a great analogy too. Well, that is amazing. I love the permission to you thing and the zone of genius versus expertise.
So just to make sure that gets the appropriate credit, it's from the book, The Big Leap.
Thank you. I love that when you reference the credit, because in this day and age, things just get uncredited by so many people. And I'm big about trying to credit where credit is due. So thank you for that. So the part of this conversation is always about subject matter experts to help us build our personal brand in a real and obtainable way. And everyone I interview always has probably more than 3 tips, but I always say, what are your top 3 takeaways that we could take away from today and run with it to do permission to you? What are your 3 tips for us, Tracy?
So harness your feelings. Okay. That's number 1. We talked about that a lot earlier in this episode, so I don't think I need to talk about that one anymore. The second one is zone of genius. What do you love to do? No matter what you've done, no matter what job you've done in the past, there's things you love to do. And there's things you do because it's part of your job. Right? What are the things you love to do? I like to do with my clients a dream job description, which is interesting because most of my clients are entrepreneurs. You're not trying to apply for a job, but what would your job be if you were creating that? Because guess what? You're creating that. So it's a fun exercise because we don't always think about that. Oh, I would just like to manage people. Okay, you're a coach.
Yes.
Like, this is what coaches do. And it's one of the things that I found the most rewarding in my corporate work. Right before I quit, it was really the only thing that was keeping me there, is that I had people that I loved watching grow and exceed and meet their next dream. Like, I love that. And so, oh, this is the same thing I do as a coach. So pay attention to those things that you love to do. And then, I mean, the last thing I would say is just do you, man. What does that look like? What would you do? So again, we get distracted by, oh, this person did this person has achieved what I'd want to achieve, so I should do that. Like, what would you do? You don't like selling in DMs? Great, don't.
Or don't think what your family or friends would think of you. That's another big hang up, to be you. You're worried about the perception of being judged, Right.
And everybody has that. It's a universal experience.
Exactly.
To feel judged. And I would be interested to hear your perspective on this, Michelle, but the more that I have grown my personal brand, the less I care.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. And, I came before I really decided to own being consistent, because I was kind of not practicing when I preach. I feared it. That's what held me back. And so when I said, no, I'm doing it. And then the consistency breeds action. I think that's a Marie Forleo saying, which I always credit people where I've heard it first. But getting out and doing that thing gives you that clarity, gives you that confidence, and then you can also learn from it too. But going back to your number two about where do you find your best zone of genius, one of the things I realized, and I started paying attention a couple years ago. Here's the thing: I never miss a meal. Okay, so because I have to eat every, hypoglycemic, I have to eat every 3 hours. So, what are the things that I am doing that I don't get up and go eat? Like there, and believe me, I've realized, oh, I'm doing these things I didn't even think about eating or drinking or glass of water or whatever. So where are the things time just flew and you didn't even know it? So when you pay attention, and we all have that one thing where it's like, oh, I don't even know what time it is. I don't care. The flow zone, I think there's books about that. But that's where we can exactly find, if we're not aware, because some people are not aware what their zone of genius is. And I know you want to help them uncover that.
That's why I had to have a job. If everybody knew that, they wouldn't be in like me.
Yeah, we wouldn't be hiring you, or you wouldn't be on podcasts telling us about this. Right. Now, these are 3 important tips. And the beauty of this show is that we take all your goodness, all your tips, and we put them in show notes, highlight them, give them that so they can take this away and just start implementing. So I appreciate that. And I'm going to learn some more too. I have to admit, I don't do enough deeper diving for me, but here's the thing. We've talked about this, Tracy, as brand strategist, personal branding. Isn't it completely hard to do your own work to yourself? Isn't it almost impossible?
I don't believe it impossible, but it's pretty close to impossible. I actually did a post about this. I played competitive basketball growing up, and guess what? You don't coach yourself.
That's why they have coaches.
No one does. Nobody who is elite at anything coach themselves to do it. So even though I'm good at personal branding, I need a network of people around me continually probing me like, ooh. It's actually one of the reasons why I'm closing my Facebook group, because I had so many people are like, why do you even have your Facebook group? You're right. Why do I even have my Facebook group? Because honestly, at one point in my brand journey, I loved my Facebook group. I did. And now I don't love Facebook.
Yes.
So we're parting ways as friends.
We'll see more of you on LinkedIn then, which is always a good thing. Yeah, that's always a good thing. Well, Tracy, before we tell everyone can find out where to find you, one of the things I'm really treasuring, everyone's given me such great tips and advice, and I'm going to share one day on this big juicy post. What's your favorite saying, personal and professional mantra that you want to share to empower our listeners?
Practice makes permanent.
Ooh, I've never heard that. Tell me about that.
So I'm a big Dale Carnegie fan. I've taken like all the Dale Carnegie trainings lots of times. And one of my trainers said this to me, and I loved it immediately because I don't believe in perfect. So practice makes perfect never made sense to me, because it doesn't matter how often I practice. I can't make, and again, even from a competitive background in my basketball, it doesn't matter how many free throws you shoot. You will never shoot 100%. No. You just never will. A breeze or a crooked rim or whatever, you can't. It's not possible. But what practice does is it helps you create a new habit.
Yes.
And that is the whole thing. People say different things about how long it takes to create a habit. So that's neither here nor there. But the more you practice it, the more it becomes your default response. And you still have the option to choose different things. Like you don't have to practice that. It's just going to keep using basketball references now because I'm on the topic, right? Like you're going to practice dribbling. You want to get good at dribbling. You practice, you do it a lot, and then you know how to do it without thinking about it, and then it just happens. That's like great. Any other skill. And owning your personal brand is a skill. It's a skill you have to practice, and so just practice.
That's a perfect way to tie in with personal brands. Well, thank you for that. That's definitely going to go on the top of my list. I had not heard that one, and such a good analogy. And it's all tied to action and consistency, which I'm super proponent about, because my backstory, I waited 5 years to be an entrepreneur. Had I taken action sooner and being consistent out there, but no second guessing, we're all moving forward on the path we're at now. So thank you for all this information today. So I know everyone here would love to know more about you, where we find, more about your permission to do you. And so tell us, where can we find you, Tracy?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Yay. Tracy Borreson. You can search me, friend me, coffee chat me. I would love to chat with anybody.
In the show notes, your LinkedIn, your website, and all the other amazing stuff you gave me to put in there. This is your place to shine in the show notes. Definitely put Tracy on your follow or connect on LinkedIn. She does really good, insightful, really around this lane of brand identity, which I don't really see anyone else talking about on LinkedIn. So it's really special and it really stands out. So, Tracy, I can't thank you enough for spending the time. And also the other day, spending your birthday, the first couple hours of your birthday. I really appreciate your time. So glad. Tracy's another amazing person that I met on LinkedIn. So if you're not on LinkedIn, get on it. You can just meet amazing friends, connections, collaborators, clients. It's a community. That's the only thing I can say about LinkedIn. When you get on it, when you're consistent, when you're giving value and giving without receiving, expecting to receive, it's the community you always wanted. It's the best version that you can curate. And people, they're so supportive. And you're one of them. I thank you so much, Tracy. It's been a pleasure. So you go out and have a great weekend. And I will be chatting with you soon and seeing you on LinkedIn as well.
Okay? Awesome. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. Thanks so much for tuning in today. You know, we definitely need more impactful entrepreneurs like you out there. So if you'd like to learn more about how I can help you build your personal brand to grow your business, please check out yourbrandyourbusiness.com. And until next time, you have a brand to build, a message to share, and people to impact. Now go put yourself out there and watch the business of you grow.